Hello, here is my interview with Cíobháin, who is the DJ presenter of An Taobh Tuathail show, which is on Radio na Gaeltachta, which people listen to all over the world. It's an amazing show. If you haven't heard it, you should check it out. It's got great music taste. It's very eclectic, but he plays a lot of great electronic music, and he's a really interesting guy. And here's the interview. Dia gwich, Cian.
Hello.
Gamal leis Gael, Neil alone Gaelga agum. An will to ag obal to a kind berla.
I'll be going to be early, yeah.
This might be the first time that lots of people actually hear you speaking English.
It might be actually, yeah, who knows. I did a couple of broadcasts years ago for Pulse, exactly 10 years ago, and I was listening to them the other day. I was thinking of uploading them, but I talk really, really fast in them, so I'm not too sure if I'm going to put them
You
up.
definitely should. Definitely should. The only thing I've seen, you did something with Mel Joanne before. Was it an interview? Or was
Yeah,
it? Yeah, that was in English, right?
a lot of people wouldn't be familiar. Yeah, I know people. I bump into people who listen to me for years on the radio, and they speak English, and they look at me after a while and go, "I'm just not used to hearing that voice in English." So,
So thank you so much for doing this interview, and congratulations on the 25th, upcoming 25th anniversary. That's an incredible milestone and achievement. So I wanted to start by asking how you initially got into electronic music when you were growing up. Like, what age were you, and how did you get into it?
I mean, subliminally, I was listening to electronic music without even realizing it through the charts in the 80s. And like my first big pop star crush, both romantically but also musically, was Madonna. So I would have been listening to like the first album I bought would have been Like a Virgin. So Like a Virgin is the album with Into the Groove on it. So I mean, it wasn't a lot of that. I mean, some of that is Nile Rodgers and Jelly Bean Benitez and all that kind of stuff. So you're listening to pretty much prototype early house, late disco, through that kind of music. And even like years later, when I got into New Order, I still would have considered myself an indie head. I mean, again, you're listening to that same similar era. So I wouldn't have considered myself being into electronic music per se when I really got heavily into the music, maybe in the late 80s, early 90s, but I was, unbeknownst to me, yeah. I thought of myself more as a, as an indie head. But yeah, I was I bought a lot of those early rave cassettes, like Kicks Like a Mule, some of the Prodigy stuff on CD, on cassette singles at the time. So yeah, maybe I was. But I still think that later on I would have, like getting into Massive Attack and stuff like that, and trip hop, even Big Beat, they were all gateways into kind of getting into house and techno. Like I was kind of fairly slow to come to techno. I'd say it would have been around 99, 2000 that I would have started having a slight interest and then more of an interest after that.
And was that like, were you buying records, vinyl at the time when you were 99, 2000 getting into techno?
Yeah, would have been, I suppose I would have been really, I don't know, when would I started buying records? Maybe around 93, 94. Up to then I bought cassettes and then CDs, and I was just never really precious about vinyl, even though I have thousands of records. But I stopped buying it about 12 years ago, and the only records I buy now are albums that I have sentimental attachment to, and I just want to have them on vinyl. And I sometimes end up buying albums I already have, and they're just forgotten about it. I go,
Yeah,
oh yeah, I haven't got that. Oh, I've got two copies at home already.
yeah. The reason I ask is more for me, the process of finding the music was related to the process of buying it. Because when I started to go to record shops, that's when I would be introduced to a lot of music. So the format of it and the learning about it kind of went hand in hand, because you would like go into a record shop and then they would say like, "Oh, have you heard this? Have you heard this? Have you heard this?" Was it like that in Galway? Was it that like a way that you found music through the record shops?
Yeah, I mean, there was a shop in Galway called Mulligan's, which doesn't
Yeah.
exist anymore. Those guys had a serious encyclopedia knowledge about music, and I would have bought a fair amount of stuff in there, but most of my record shopping would have been done in Dublin and London.
Right.
I Yeah, I mean, Killian and Big Brother was so many records with a sticker with ATT on it because I would have ordered it off Killian. And um, another Killian who used to work was it? Oh God, I just can't keep up with the name. There were loads of record shops around Dublin I was popping into, and definitely the ones around Soho where you would just go away to London for the weekend to go clubbing, but also to fill up a bag with records, and you come back with maybe 30, 40 new records, like, on those trips.
Did you go to London quite often?
I did around 1990 to maybe 2004. I used to go over 3 or 4 times a year. One of my closest friends lives there, and so it was an excuse to see him and hang out. And yeah, used to definitely Soho, Sounds of the Universe, Phonica. Pete Atlas had a record shop there. I can't remember what it's called. There were all those shops that I used to go into, and kind of got to know some of the staff as well through that.
And what was
We kind
1999 the year that ATT started?
Yeah,
So
started in Maine.
you must did you start doing 5 nights a week at that point when it started?
No, it was on 7 nights a week, and I used to host a show 4 nights. And a colleague of mine who sadly passed away last year, Ronan McCabe, we used to host a show another 3 nights. So between us, for the first couple of years, it was just the two of us on air. And we also had, I mean, after Ronan, a guy called Cathal Cuig from Connemara came, did the show for a couple of years. There was another guy called Ben O'Fellon from Kerry who used to run really good club nights here in Galway. Had massive. I went to school with him. He was a couple of years behind me. He would have gotten. He would have been one of the first guys, probably the first person in Dingle I knew who had early Aphex Twin and Warp records, just as they were coming out. But he did the show for a couple of years as well. So I think I've been doing it solo since about 2005 or 2006. I'm trying to figure out because then they it just changed to a Monday to Friday format.
Yeah. So in 99, which you were doing 4 nights a week, which nights were you doing?
Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. I think so. I
Yeah.
was off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Maybe it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Yeah, that was it. I actually used to really enjoy doing the Sunday nights because normally I would have been out the night before.
Yeah.
So you were kind of coming in a, early mid-20s, hungover, but gravelly voice, and just playing. Oh, there was a certain mood to doing something doing shows on a Sunday night.
Would you have been DJing as well sometimes, like doing the show and then going to DJ somewhere?
There was a lot of speeding on that road, I think, and trying to get into gigs in time.
Oh,
Because I would have started doing 110th Street, the club ran in Galway in '98, and that was on, I don't know, a couple of times a month by that stage. So yeah, on some Saturday nights, I used to have to try and get the show done and then rush in and start DJing. But I just have somebody else start off the night maybe and then take over.
right. That sounds like a very intense lifestyle.
Nothing compared to now.
It's
It's only one.
so like nowadays, is it you do 5 nights a week since 2005? That's like very long time.
Yeah. Well, I need to find out the exact year, but I mean, there was the first 6 years on air from '99 to 2005. I don't know if you're aware of this, but I wasn't allowed to play songs in English. That news to you, or
You
have you heard
weren't
that
allowed
before?
to play songs that had any English vocals.
No, there were snippets and samples that would sneak in, and of course, on some house and techno records, there'd be something unintelligible going on. But no, I wasn't, and no, there was a blanket ban on RTERnaG up to 2005. So I always think of that as the kind of first era.
Yeah.
So I was playing electronica, jazz, post rock, um, ambient, and a lot of people were quite enjoyed the fact that they were tuning into mostly instrumental music and were able to maybe concentrate on correcting papers for students, or if you're a student, concentrating on writing up stuff for college. So there was that, and the rule book changed in 2005, and I think Ben was the first guy who played Ben, who I mentioned earlier, the song in English on ATT, and he played Wordy Rapping Wood by Tom Tom Club. What are Wordsworth is the refrain, yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. Never knew that. So, did you continue playing mostly instrumental music after that ban was lifted because you were like used to doing it that way, or did you start to play a lot of vocals?
It's funny, I mean, it just opened up everything for me because it used to be slightly frustrating if you were spending your weekends discovering amazing tracks that you just couldn't share because of a language barrier thing. So I suddenly was able to play every recorded sound since the beginning of time. And yeah, and I just went with it. Of course, I embraced it. Yeah.
Wow. So, how much time do you spend on like finding the new music and listening to the new music that gets sent to you? Like, is that time staying steady over this last like 10, 15 years, or is it, increasing the amount of time that you're spending on the listening and preparing for the show?
I think every DJ would tell you that in our inboxes, promo inboxes are just absolutely crazy. They're unmanageable almost. So what I've kind of done over the years is try to work a little bit smarter. I've unsubscribed from a lot of lists where it would promo lists where it would be hit and miss that you might like the odd thing. Um, I yeah, I mean, I try and put in as many hours as possible, and I work a lot from home, so it's kind of hard to switch off, especially when there's so much stuff coming in, and it's always at the back of your mind that if you leave it a couple of days, that there's going to be 200 or 300 new emails in your inbox to check out. So yeah, you stay at it, but it's also you kind of want to you don't want to just rely on promos. You want to be going through Bandcamp, listening to stuff that friends recommended, maybe certain websites that you check out and have recommended stuff as well. So it's I think the most work that I do for the show and the most important work is that work, the work of listening, going through stuff and figuring out what I'm going to play, because I think that's why people come and listen to the show, because they just need somebody to try and cut through the noise, really. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the curator kind of thing. There's a one quote in the press release for the 25th anniversary. It says many musicians have had their first ever airplay on the show. I'd say I'm one of those, if not the first, one of the very first radio plays of my music was on Taobh Tuathail. So yeah, I can relate to that. Did you, is that conscious decision early on to support new emerging artists like that, or is how did that come about?
I will always try and support Irish music if I can in any way in the start, especially when people are starting out, but only if I like it. There's no point in playing something that you think that you're not connecting with from your heart and soul. And so, um, yeah, I suppose the answer is I do my best, and not everything that gets sent my way I can necessarily connect with. And apologies to anyone whose stuff has come my way over the years that I haven't enjoyed enough to play. But yeah, I do my best. Yeah.
But I mean, it goes like way beyond Ireland as well, because I know plenty of people in the UK, for example, who also, send you music and you play it. So it's there's like it's a very supportive show of people who might not have a big profile or get played
Yeah,
now.
there's just probably not enough radio shows at the moment. I mean, it's a dying breed, the kind of curated radio show, and there's probably just not enough radio shows. I mean, when I get emails from people in Berlin and stuff going, uh, there's nothing here for me to support her. I used to a couple of years ago, and there's probably a bit more now, but I think it just says a lot about the lack of maybe national radio shows who are willing to take that risk and the way that we're all straitjacketed. I mean, they're straitjacketed into playlists and commercial interests and hearing the same artists over and over again. And even some specialist radio shows might only be specialist to a certain genre, be it guitar rock or so. Yeah, I mean, I'm just lucky not to be constrained by lists or by any kind of commercial pressure and trust the DJ, really, isn't it?
Yeah, we're lucky to have you. There's one group of producers that I'm in that is a Patreon group that Red Rackham started to. I know you play some of his music, but there's a few people in that group like Future Self and the Shen and Void Complete. And sometimes you're playing like 4 or 5 tracks in from people that are in that group, and we're all like buzzing about it. We're like, hey, but we don't know if you even know that we know each other or anything like that.
I guessed just through little things I've seen online and stuff over the last year or two, or maybe on Twitter.
Um, I was asking those guys like if anyone had any questions they wanted me to ask you, and there's some couple of interesting ones. There was, can you describe the process of what it feels like when you find like a gem of a track?
It is dancing around this room. It is putting it on a second time.
Yeah,
Uh, Function One speakers here behind me, full blast. It's an absolute joy.
you got a PA in your house.
I have nice little Function One speakers. Yeah, I might turn the camera on if I.
Oh wow, nice. That's really cool. So it's like
I think Danny did ask me once, Red Rackham. He said, "Do you live in a nightclub?" And I told him I had Function One speakers in the house.
I never
But the
heard
sound is
anyone else.
speaker, and I've got it laid out in such a way as I never get complaints from the neighbors. I haven't in years, and
Oh my God, that sounds like a dream.
it's great.
Do you listen loud to music?
No, I'm careful.
Yeah,
And when I DJ, I wear earplugs minus 15 dBs.
yeah,
And I'm actually thinking I might even get earplugs that are minus 22.
yeah,
But like a lot of my sets are about 5 hours long, and so you're 5 hours with your head in the basement,
yeah,
and always wear earplugs. If I'm in a nightclub and I don't have, I mean, I wouldn't bring my good earplugs with me if I'm going to clubbing, but I would always stuff tissues or anything into my ear.
yeah.
And it does make a difference. I haven't suffered from any kind of tinnitus in years, and I used to when I was much younger and going to gigs and clubs. Yeah.
Cool. That's
I
good to hear. Yeah,
I actually think it's one of the most important things that any DJ should do is spend whatever it's about 250 quid, 300 euros on those plugs. Get bright, luminous ones so you can see them if you drop them.
yeah.
And yeah, and I remember when I started wearing them first, it's going, am I going to mess it? I was just so conscious of my mixing that I'd rather fluff a couple of mixes than have bad hearing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even in a club that often, but even just in the studio working on stuff, I'm conscious of the level, and it's not something you want to be.
You know, the biggest test is if you've got a friend over and you notice what level they play the music at,
Yeah,
or you're driving somebody in the car, a very well-known London DJ who has hearing issues since I remember years ago giving him a lift in the car, and I could not believe how loud he was turning. The music was distorting, like, practically. And I was going, okay, he needs to hear it at this level to enjoy it. Like I would have been maybe 5 or 6 notches below that.
wow,
But
that's interesting. Yeah,
yeah.
actually, I'm just like kind of coincidentally, I'm gonna get an ear test soon. There's like all these places called Hidden Hearing. They do free ear tests. There's one like
Yeah.
5 minutes from my house, so I'm gonna go and get one in the next week or two. And one of my students actually told me about it a couple of weeks ago, and he got his ears syringed, which I've heard a lot of people have had. Have you ever had your ears syringed?
I thought about it, and I asked my GP, and he said you don't need to do it. So
Right. It's interesting because like
I need to get it done.
apparently like you can hear everything after you get your ears syringed, like
Oh,
really clear.
I, I mean, one thing I do a lot is this.
Oh yeah.
like you're coming off a plane, because there is a little pressure that builds up in your ear, and it's suddenly you just hear you do hear a little clearer after doing that. Yeah.
Ah, interesting stuff. So back to the questions here. Well, we talked about like a little bit about this, but how do you go about listening to all the music that you get sent? Do you always listen on the same setup, or do you kind of mix between different things, or do you ever like listen while you're out walking or anything?
I used to listen a lot when I was driving, but I don't anymore. I usually just go through Spotify lists and stuff if I'm driving.
Yeah.
I know Spotify is the enemy. I've tried other streaming services, but I keep going back to it. Yeah, it's kind of a necessary evil for me at this stage. But do I listen? No, I pretty much do it all here in my home studio, and I either listen through the function one speakers if I'm on my own in the house, or if there's anybody else here. I've just got a small setup here that I can check things out. But the way I kind of listen, like like I wonder sometimes about, say, why do people make albums anymore? I don't know if this question has popped up, and uh, I've asked musicians this, and a lot of them said that they do it for posterity, just to have something that stands the test of time. That if somebody looks back in 50 years and says, "Oh, he made that album, she made that album, they made that album," then. But for, like, say if somebody sends me an album, the way I listen to it is, because of so many other things that I want variety in the show, I might just focus on the first 4 or 5 tracks, and if there's 2 tracks from that, I put them into a folder, and I might play those 2 tracks for a couple of weeks on the radio, and then return to the rest of the album. So it's kind of fragmented listening, but it's probably the same way that a lot of people are consuming music streaming now as well. Not the artist's vision as a whole from beginning to end. I can probably count the amount of albums that are new that I've listened to from beginning to end in the last year, and probably count them all in one hand. Like, and there would have been once by friends who would have kind of insisted on me checking the whole thing out in total.
Yeah, same. In regards to listening, there's very few albums I listen to the whole thing. It's like maybe 5 a year or something. But like Square Pusher's new album there, Dastro Time, I listened to that start to finish. I'd probably listen to it again another couple of times. Did you listen to that one, the whole thing?
No, no, flick through it, and I don't think I've gotten through the whole album yet. I just noticed that there were those quite instrumental lull bits, and the rest of it seems fierce, but I haven't got to the end of it yet. No. So yeah, it takes a couple of weeks for me to listen to a new album sometimes. Yeah.
Something like a new Square Pusher album or something. I'll listen to that over 2, 3 walks. But most of the time, it's just a track here, a track there, or listening to my own music because I'm working on it. So I have to like listen to it for see what the next changes will be.
Yeah, and so you're kind of working, you're walking and you're working at the same time, pretty much, which is something I do a lot as well. With if there's tracks I need to that I'm thinking of using in DJ sets, I put them on a USB, so I have them in the car.
Yeah,
Um, and that's sometimes as close as listening to music to pleasure. I mean, all of it is pleasure, but the old, if you're just a consumer at home and you stick on an album and listen to it from beginning to end, like, that's bliss. I often think, will I be like that when I retire? Will I get that opportunity?
yeah,
But I could still see myself in retirement, like wanting to do one radio show a week somewhere. It might be
yeah,
whatever avenues are available in, how long is it? 15 to 16 years time.
yeah. That's funny. I got the exact same thing of like got a nice chair, got my turntable set up, got all my records there, and I'm always thinking like it would be nice to just sit down and just listen to some records, and rarely ever happens. Very, very.
I sometimes do it if when I'm cleaning the house, and I don't hear my own. I just stick on speakers really loud, and yeah, it's an album on vinyl, and it absolutely sounds great.
Yeah,
I A book I read earlier this year, and I love it so much. I'm rereading it at the moment because it's just full of so many great ideas that were floating around my head, but I hadn't. This guy articulates it as, do you know Sean Ronaldo?
oh yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
First Floor, is that the name of his publication? So an anthology. I think, is it Velocity Press? Is it
yeah.
Velocity Press? Yeah, I think they're both on it. I could be wrong now, but
Right.
higher, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And Harold Heath's book might have been on that as well. The
Last
journey
night a
from small.
DJ saved my life. That one.
Oh no, Harold Heath wrote a really good book. It's something along the lines of my journey from small town DJ to slightly bigger DJ, and he just writes it's kind of like somebody who write, you know, you get these football books written by journeymen who would have played non-league and didn't
Yeah,
have the glamour for the bigger European or English clubs. So he's kind of like pretty much what most DJs go through is like what's it like working in pubs, in function rooms, playing to hen parties. Uh, Even though you had dreams to do maybe something else completely, and you never got onto the level of Carl Cox or even so he talks about it from the bottom rung,
yeah,
and it's an absolute read. Harold Heath is the name of the writer. Yeah,
yeah. That sounds like I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen references to that and thought it'd be a good read. Must grab a copy of that.
yeah, recommend that too. I can't stop reading music books. You know, I stop. I read. I like to read a lot of kind of science and history. I used to read fiction years ago, and now it's mostly non-fiction. But every time I'm reading something else, I usually have two music books on the go. And the one you mentioned there last night, "You Just Saved My Life," I think that's one of the greatest books ever written. I've read it twice.
Yeah, same.
Super.
Yeah, I
And
learned
if I'm
so
researching,
much.
oh, so much, yeah, and so well researched and such a beautiful style. And yeah, it's a treasure trove. Yeah.
Yeah. Sean Ronaldo's book, I haven't read that one yet. I read First Floor though. Been a subscriber to that for a long time. He's a great writer.
I
Did you
never
read
get a
that?
chance to read a lot. Trying to read long form stuff on the internet. I kind of try, but it's just so much easier when you have it on a Kindle or a book.
Yeah. Yeah, good few books to get there. Um, Another question from the group here. This is a really good question I wonder about too, is when you listen to music, how much does the production quality do you think matter? You know, and it probably is genre specific, I'd imagine, because you're playing more eclectic stuff earlier in the week where maybe it doesn't matter as much if there's like a good musical idea. It doesn't matter how well it's recorded and mixed and all that. And but then when you get into like dance music in the later weeknights and Thursday, Friday night, then is music production much more important. You got to have the right sound to make it good.
Yeah, the like sometimes you get these lo-fi house records, and I think they sound great on the radio, but I don't know how people play them in the clubs. They just, for me, somebody is going to hear a lo-fi house record in a club, and unless they're on an amazing sound system where they're picking up all the nitty-gritties, it's just going to sound like a badly recorded tune or badly produced tune. But say something like Ariel Pink or someone like that, who made his name on playing lo-fi pop music, and especially in the early days, I just couldn't imagine him. I mean, I love hearing that stuff, and it completely makes sense for those kind of genres. Um, yeah, I guess sometimes you just get sent tracks that I'm not sure have they been mastered, or they sound like a little bit quite compressed to my ears, and sometimes I bring this up with people, and but I just don't know I don't have the technological terminology to explain what might possibly be done to improve those tracks. Yeah, but
Sure.
yeah, I'm always listening to. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd be talking to. I would discuss production with my friends about stuff very well produced or
Yeah.
techniques there. Or
Just your ear must become very tuned just to timbre of stuff, I would say, because of you're listening over so many years, you're just becoming more and more tuned into a certain, like, do you find when you put on music that you haven't heard before, you're just kind of immediately aware of what the quality is like?
yeah, no, it's happened because I would be on promo lists where I check something out and I go, there's something wrong there. It's not intentional. I know it's not intentional and it sounds wrong. And I've only got my ears to go by, and I get in touch with the promo and it's happened. And I go, I don't think they're mastered, or I think you might have sent out an earlier version but not the finished version. And nine times out of ten, they come back a couple of days later going, "You're right. We just pulled them and we've got the right ones gone out now." Yeah. So again, it's just my ears. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's like when you're someone who's making music. at home in your bedroom and you're kind of aware that like you're trying to get your music to sound like the great music that you love, and it's kind of impossible to do that, but you keep on trying to get it better and better. But I, it's just interesting. It's this kind of battle that's going on actually for me. It's a battle like of there's musical ideas and just melodies and chords and things like that, and then but there's the production quality that like you want it to, if it is played on a radio show like yours, you want it to like sit well with the other music that's on there and the loudness and everything like that.
Yeah, well, you've been pretty much nailing that now, I think, for the last while. I was actually listening to one of your latest release with the Nigerian singer earlier,
Oh,
and
nice.
but also listening to it in the context of other stuff that I was, and yeah, it's perfect.
Ah,
I wouldn't be coming to you and going, oh, this is how you can improve that. It's
great to hear that. Really made my day.
how
Yeah,
is it? Does she pronounce her name Shut or is how's her name
she
pronounced?
pronounces it Seo.
Sale. Okay,
Yeah.
it's like the Irish word shut and
Yeah, it
shut.
does. Yeah, I never thought of that actually.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's
that's what.
also like if you're searching for her online, like good luck. You won't find her
Yeah.
because it's like SEO, SEO music. Everything else will come up there. I wonder.
I am constantly mispronouncing musicians' names,
Yeah,
and you just what can you see a piece of text in front of you, and when you're speaking in Irish, and then you have to change it to English, your tongue sometimes just slips on certain words. I don't know what you. I hope it's part of the appeal of ATT, but it's. And then if you're pronouncing something in French or German, oh God, don't get me. I've never spoke German before, so I just usually try and spell the word or just say check out the links tomorrow. Yeah.
I'm sure nobody minds at all except for the French. They mind.
You know, one thing I'd like to mention though, I think I still get emails every single week from people who are unaware that there is an archive online of shows that they can check out. So like if you follow me on any of the social media and go into my link tree, you can pick pretty much any show from 2013, click on the date, and you've got the playlist and the audio. So
Yeah.
I think that's uh, phenomenal that RT have done that and kept
Yeah,
them there.
that's incredible. Incredible wealth of.
I know a guy who's slowly going through them all, and he every now and then he gets in touch with me, and he goes, "I'm up to." I think the last time he got in touch with me was he's about a year behind now,
That's a
but
brilliant
he's just
endeavor.
taking them off. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I admire anyone's nerdy completism.
That is a large undertaking. Yeah, that's certainly. Uh, there's one more question, which from the Shen actually, which is a good question, is you know, how do you have time with all the 5 nights a week of radio shows to put so many funny memes on Instagram?
Yeah, those memes. Uh, I know it's just ridiculous behavior for a middle-aged man, isn't it? Like it is, but I think about it. What I also think about it is the internet is just so full of vile and hate and polarized opinions and people not seeing eye to eye. That it's just nice to put something up that's joyful and that isn't plugging yourself or your work, and that there's people who tune in around 6 o'clock every evening just for their fix. That where do I find the time? I have loads of sources. It's like people are sending me stuff now
Yeah.
to the stick,
Oh,
and I think the trick is not to put too many up
yeah.
because I know people who stick up maybe like about 50 things in a day, and I'm here going, I'd love to see them all, but I just don't have time to look at 50. Can you just keep it down to 10 or under?
Well
Yeah,
said.
but it
That was, yeah.
is.
I definitely am one of those who checks them out. I have the same. We must have similar sense of humor because I find them really funny. It's like TR1 is great as well. He's
Eddie
mad sense
is
of humor. Love it.
yeah, yeah. He does a lot of digging, all right, for it.
But
I was really
yeah,
enjoying that footage of Aphex Twin last the footage that was coming up last week of
Dancer and
when
the window licker video.
that was just blew me away. Just forgot about how important videos were and what a big deal they were. And I don't know, like I was thinking the other day of, do you remember that show 120 Minutes on MTV?
No.
Early 90s, early to mid 90s. It was presented by Paul King, who used to sing with the band King, who had hit Love and Pride.
Right.
He's he's of long hair then, but then he played one, shaved it all off, and he just did a kind. Yeah, he just it was called 120 Minutes. It was 2 hours long, and it was mostly indie with some electronica. And used to be on MTV. And MTV used to have a show at night after the clubs. When I moved to Galway in 93, 94, you'd come back and stick it on, and we'd be playing Ultramarine, loads of early Warp stuff, and they all had videos. Autekra. Um, yeah, just thinking there, how lovely it was to engage with music in that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Stone.
Definitely remember that one and would have like definitely watched. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing recently about the it's hard to make a video now because like even at a higher scale, like if you're a bigger label and you put resources into making a video, but why? Like what? Nothing.
Or where do you watch them? I mean, you will have to just click on the YouTube link and watch it, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah. And yeah, it's funny. I mean, even the MTV channels that are on my Sky are 80s, 90s retro ones.
yeah,
And so the past is still alive on my TV, living in an eternal present. You know, at any stage, you just click on something, the Beatles are still making records, and it's just this weird time we're living in. Even people who are dead are still alive if you click on.
yeah.
It gets.
Definitely is a weird time. It's a weird time to be making new music. It's I constantly go through phases where I'm just like, what's the point of this? Like, it's there's more people doing it than ever before, and we're going through some kind of weird change where some tech companies are trying to change the world so that it's like everyone just makes their own music instead of listening to other people's or something like that.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I mentioned Sean Ronaldo's book there. He makes a very interesting point about, say, techno, and he says techno roughly. Let's not talk about the prototype for it, like not Kraftwerk, but let's say techno is roughly just over 40 years old if you go back to the Detroit stuff. So at the time, the music was looking towards the future and was futuristic in terms of robots, what the future is going to be like, spaceships, travel. And now it is 40 years old and middle-aged, and it is nostalgic at the same time. And a lot of the people who are still, there's a whole intergenerational almost battle going on between older gatekeepers of what it sounded like and think they should sound like, and younger kids who are coming along and want to rip up the rule book and go, no, this is how we do it. And it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I mean, I like both. I mean, and I find good records in both and bad records in both. But yeah, why do it's like it's no longer is the sound of the future. A lot of people are still using the exact same templates that were around in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, that's a good take on it. I think that there's still something of value in no matter which side you come from. Like I would think of an analogy being like the jazz, the evolution of jazz, like where, started in the 20s and then in the 30s it was like the swing era but then it was still going really strong in the 60s even though it had been around for so long. It was just evolving, and in the 60s it was still like the old school swing stuff going on, but then all the newer Herbie and Miles pushing stuff forward. And I kind of think about electronic music in that like few decades span as well. And I think like if jazz basically from the 20s to the even in the 80s it was still changing. And but so say there was like a 40 to 50 year period of the golden age of jazz, well then electronic music still has a few decades left to keep evolving.
Yes, I can buy into some of that, and I could probably argue against it as well. But yeah, has it evolved that much in the last couple of years? I mean, a lot of the ideas that are floating around are the ones that were going back then. So my take on it would be: is it good? Do I like it? Do I enjoy it? Or is it something that I just find trite or want to pass on for the next record? So it's back to this good or bad, really, when it comes to choosing records.
I mean, there's like the Duke Ellington quote, there's two kinds of music, good music and bad music. So yeah, there's a lot of subjectiveness to it, but like in the end, is there not something objectively good? Like Bach's still around, people still love him. Is there? It's not just subjective only, is it?
A bit of both. I don't know. I mean, a lot of music say that I didn't like growing up. Uh, I DJ at weddings, so I get to play from the pop, yeah, going right back to girl groups all the way up to the modern day. Like, and so I get to listen to records again that I might necessarily click on when I'm at home, or and there's so much stuff that I didn't realize was like I think is absolute genius and would hold up as some of the best records I've ever heard. And might be surprised at some of the names I'm going to mention, but ABBA, uh, absolutely flawless. Their back catalog is amazing, and Bee Gees. Uh, so I guess when I was growing up, I would have regarded those records as cheesy or naff or something. And I think the more you go digging and the more you listen to everything, you just realize how absolutely flawless they are in terms of the arrangements, the melodies, the production, and why people are still listening to them in their droves up to the modern day area.
This is a really interesting discussion, but we've taken up loads of your time, and we'll leave it there. Any other last things you want to say, or got good few things lined up for the 25th anniversary?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's supposed to. I'll be announcing everything actually next week on my socials. Yeah, I think the cat has been let out of the bag, but I'll do all the announcing there. But it's probably I know exactly what's going to be happening the first week, and who knows what's going to evolve then from the rest of the year. But really, it's just an opportunity to put a little bit of a spotlight on the radio show, get people to talk and write about it again. I mean, when you've been around 25 years, people, and when you're looking for the next new thing, you definitely don't qualify for that. So it's just an opportunity to woo in maybe a few listeners who haven't heard of the show before, and they can go through that massive back catalogue that's on the RT website.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to put a couple of things in the description, like things, books, and whatever we talked about. Just throw some links up
Brilliant.
there. And yeah, I don't know when this will go up in the next week or two sometime. So